My name is Sam Tolama, and I am a PM lead on the Windows Cloud Endpoint team. I'd like to walk you through some of the key questions that many of our customers asked us in the private and public preview. The first question that many customers are curious about is how is Frontline Cloud PCs in shared mode different from Azure Virtual Desktop multi-session or traditional VDI? One key thing to highlight is that they're quite different. In shared mode, we're using single session virtual machines. They're running either Windows 10 or 11 based on what you would like, and they're very much like a physical shared PC. And so a better model for you to think about what shared mode devices is comparing them to shared physical devices. When we set up devices in shared mode, users are going to be able to connect to the cloud PC one at a time and are able to fully use that cloud PC that they're on while they're signed in. So that means that the types of users that benefit a lot from shared mode and the types of experiences that enables the organization to see some cost saving from shared mode is when you have many users, but smaller amount of users that are using the devices at once. This happens a lot in examples like the retail store example that I gave you. You may have 1,000 retail staff, but only about 30 of them or 100 that are using these inventory machine at the same time. And it's because each one of those users are using their machine for a very short period of time. And in those examples, you're going to see that shared mode is a great option. When you have users using the machines at the same time, not at non-overlapping time, shared mode may not be the best option for these users. Now, the next question that I'd like to talk about is what are some of the common use cases that we see for dedicated mode and shared mode? Now, obviously, this is a choice that the customer has, and that's part of the reason why we're providing these two modes as part of the same license. So you have the flexibility to decide and to test based on your user scenario. You purchase the license and you can set it up in dedicated mode or you can set it up in shared mode. However, from our experience and our general assumptions based on what we have designed the product for and optimized it for, we would like to think of dedicated mode for folks who are potentially using the device for smaller amount of time. So potentially if you have an information worker who needs a personal machine as their own that can save data on it and come back and find the data there, but perhaps they don't use that machine much often. Maybe they use it once a week or use it a couple of times a week. Dedicated mode is a great option for them in that example because once they've set up the machine as their own, it doesn't really matter how often they use it. They're going to come back and they're going to find it to be their own machine. And in some cases where an information worker is doing something, it's important for them to have their own machine in that case. Another example for dedicated mode that we've talked about is any type of employee that is consistently on the machine for a prolonged period of time. So a call center worker, although traditionally in VDI is given non-persistent machines, we think they have a much better experience in dedicated mode because they will have their own machine that is dedicated to them and is shut down when they're not in use, but also will allow you to enable cost-effective approach with the 1-to-3 model and the concurrency model available with dedicated mode. So that's another example of when to think about dedicated mode. The third example is anytime you have requirements that are clearly requiring that the machine is personalized and fully persistent to the user. Dedicated mode is a great option in that example. Now, in shared mode, we've heard many types of customer scenarios. Some folks want to use it for their training lab, where they set up a set of cloud PCs with a specific training app, and they make it available to their users and call it a training cloud PC, for example. Another one is consultants, where a consultant will use their own PC for general work, but when they need access to a corporate resource, they connect to the cloud PC in shared mode that gives them access to that corporate environment. Another key example here is access to specialized apps. So many times customers are looking to set up set of devices for in shared mode so that they enable their users to access specialized apps that are typically device-based licensed and traditionally installed on a physical shared PC. And lastly here, you've seen the example that I gave you when I gave the retail example. A key scenario for us in shared mode is any type of scenario where the user is logging into a PC to complete a task. And that can be generalized to a lot of types of scenarios where the user is accessing the PC for intermittent periods throughout the day. Maybe an hour here, maybe 15 minutes here. We see that to be a really great fit for shared mode. So now that we've talked about the different scenarios in when to use dedicated mode and when to use shared mode, the next question is, how is the user experience different across the two? And that's something I've talked about throughout my presentation, but I want to highlight a few things. Now, in dedicated mode, when the user is logging in, they will be assigned to a single device that is theirs. And when they're on that Cloud PC, they're able to personalize that experience. So they could be a standard user or they could be an admin. If they're an admin, they can install apps and they are able to save data on that device and come back and find their own data on it because that is their Cloud PC. Now, when they're not using the Cloud PC will be shut down. And when they're connecting, at the next time they want to start the use, that is when we powered on the dedicated mode Cloud PC. So one key thing to highlight here is that when we power on the machine for the first time in dedicated mode, that takes a longer connection time. And that's currently estimated around 2 minutes. And that's something that we're working on improving, and hopefully you'll see more features from us in the next period on this. In shared mode, on the other hand, the device will be available when you set it up for any user with a Microsoft Entra ID group to connect to, so long as they were in that provisioning policy and they were assigned to it, right? Now, that is a key thing to note because those devices in that collection that I showed you are essentially standardized devices. They're all the same. And so the user is essentially logging into any of the devices that are available so long as there are licenses available for them to connect. The Cloud PC will be running, and so there's not that connection time that I've talked about. And in addition to that, we've added specific optimizations in shared mode to allow for a quicker connection time. And another final thing here to highlight is that when the user signs out or is no longer on the machine actively using it, we're going to be deleting that profile. And so every time the user is accessing one of these machines, they're accessing it from a fresh state when they connect. And those machines are all standardized across the collection. So those are the key differences between the two. Now, the next question is, how do I know how many Cloud PCs I should provision for a given collection? That's a really great question. That's why we've added the monitoring and reporting experiences so that you can monitor over time and understand how many machines you should be providing for a set of users. In general, in shared mode, we've seen that a lot of customers are typically provisioning as many devices as their physical endpoints. And so a good example would be is if you had a training lab that had 30 physical endpoints, it's probably a good idea for you to have 30 shared Cloud PCs. And that's a good place to start. And you can adjust as you go based on your reporting capabilities and your users' need. If you would like to actually change how many devices are in the collection, that's pretty easy for you to do. You don't have to recreate that collection from scratch. You can just go to the provisioning policy and adjust. And so that allows you to learn and adjust as you go. So the next question here that I have is, what license do I need for Windows 365 Frontline Cloud PC in shared mode? That's also another question that comes up a lot. And so one thing to highlight here is that Cloud PCs in dedicated and shared mode are just modes of Windows 365 Frontline. Let me emphasize that again because that question comes up. They're not two separate licenses. They're the same license, Windows 365 Frontline, and then you can set it up in either mode. So if you purchase a Windows 365 Frontline license, you can select if you'd like to use it either in dedicated mode or in shared mode, and you do that in the provisioning policy. One Windows 365 Frontline license will allow you to provision one Cloud PC in shared mode or 3 Cloud PCs in dedicated mode. So just remember that. Now that I've shared that it is the same license, you can set it up as dedicated or shared. Your next question might be, how can I reassign licenses used in dedicated mode to be used for shared mode? And what do I need to keep in mind when I'm doing that? So you'll be able to add licenses used by Windows 365 Frontline Cloud PC in dedicated mode by removing the user from the Microsoft Intra ID group assigned in the provisioning policy. When the user is removed, their Cloud PC will typically move to a grace period. It's important to keep in mind that you will need to remove at least 3 users to release one Windows 365 Frontline license. Because remember, when you're actively using a dedicated mode Cloud PC or a license, you're getting those 3 Cloud PCs. Now, to reduce license used by shared mode, you can simply go and edit the provisioning policy. You can go to assignment and reduce the number of Cloud PCs. This will allow you to immediately be able to deprovision the Cloud PC without moving to a grace period. So the next question here is, what is the plan for expanding supported regions for shared mode? One thing to highlight is that you will notice when you're setting up shared mode that you have a smaller list of regions available for Cloud PC in shared mode. This is because we are using a new platform, and as such, we are adding more regions as we go. And so we are actively working to enable more regions, and the goal is to ensure that we have all the regions that are supported in Windows 365 Enterprise today, as well as dedicated mode. If you have questions about this, please talk to your sales representative. They are able to provide more information on the upcoming region lists that will be supported. The next questions here is, how can I ensure the user is signed out? So there is definitely the ability to have a default sign out timer of 30 minutes that we have, and that's by default. And you can change that. You can configure it to be 1 minute minimum and up to 5 days. And so in order for you to do that, you just have to go to the idle detection timeout policy and override that in the Intune setting catalog. Both of these policies and their details are configurable in Intune. My next question is, do I need any third-party tools or VDI management platforms? No, you just can use Windows 365 Cloud PC in Intune. It's pretty simple and easy. We've designed it to be that way. So if you're using partner solutions to manage Windows 365 Enterprise Cloud PC, we will over time work with partners to enable the connections to Windows 365 Frontline Cloud PC in shared mode once the product is generally available. A couple of questions we have here, and these are all questions that we hear from customers, so hopefully they are helpful to you as a reference. Which data gets persisted and which gets deleted in shared mode? So when the user is signing out in shared Cloud PC, their entire user profile will be deleted. App data like Outlook clients data will be deleted as well. Configurations, though, stored in the cloud, for example, Microsoft Edge browser settings and favorites, will still be there and available to the user. The last 2 questions I have for you here are really helpful to know. You've got, which Windows 365 SKUs support Windows Autopilot device preparation policy? Today, we support it just for shared mode, but we are actively working on supporting it for both frontline and dedicated mode and enterprise. So that's coming. And then lastly, one of the things that our customers are really excited about is Windows 365 Link. And so question might be, can you use Windows 365 Link to connect to Windows 365 Frontline Cloud PCs in shared mode? The answer is absolutely. We've worked pretty hard to support that from the get-go. We have a lot of customers who are super excited about using both because there's a great amount of overlap between users who are accessing machines for task work and Windows 365 Link device scenarios. And so please use it, test it. It's in preview, and we're looking for your feedback. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this content useful, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback on Windows 365 Frontline.